basic health care. And the underinsured do the same thing, maybe not to the same degree. But let's say you had health insurance, but you didn't have prescription coverage, and you have diabetes or hypertension or asthma, you're much less likely to get a prescription filled, get treated, and so then again you'll crash into the emergency room or into the hospital with a complication from untreated diabetes, or have a heart attack or asthma, end up on a ventilator, let's say. So, so the underinsured, which is about 1/3 of the population, frequently acts like the uninsured. Not exactly the same, but it's there. You just don't see that in all the other wealthy democracies. There's basic health care. Everybody has health insurance. Health care is much more affordable in all the other industrialized countries. So people have access to basic health care. There's more primary care physicians. There's better primary care, and if you look, their healthcare costs are lower. They also have a more simplified insurance system. You know, ours is really complicated. 1,500 different insurance programs, numerous different government programs, tremendous bureaucracy, waste, and inefficiency. So, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars are being wasted there, but then we're also spending hundreds of billions of dollars on people who are sick who wouldn't have been sick if we would have provided them basic health care in the first place.
Yeah, well, that's one of the answers to cutting back on the costs is taking care of it before it gets out of hand. If you got a wart or something, get it out before it becomes full-fledged cancer that's all over your body, you know? And if you can't go to a doctor, you're not going to get the wart removed, and so you wind up in the hospital. Rudy, you did point out that even though, well, about 50 million people don't have any health insurance, but out of the other people, there's another 50 to 100 million who say, well, I'm insured, but they don't realize that their insurance expires after $5,000, which would be a one-day trip to the emergency room. Some of them got insurance, and as a proof of that, we have zillions of bankruptcies in this country every year. 50% of those bankruptcies, half of them, full half of them, are healthcare related. People are bankrupt because they've been wiped out. And out of that huge number of people, 3/4 of them had health insurance. So they didn't really have health insurance. They just thought they did. So it's bankrupting us. It's bankrupting our hospitals. It's a crazy system. And the only people who are making any money on it, of course, the insurance companies, that they cream off 30% from the top. How can they go wrong? And it's no wonder they pay off billions of dollars to the Congress to make sure it stays. You've seen those pictures of the congressmen being entertained in the South Sea Island resorts and dancing and hopping around, having a great time and fishing, and that's all covered by the health insurance companies, and they pay huge amounts of money. You know, the guy that was in charge of the committee that put out this new health bill, I think he received in direct contributions and related through health care companies. I've heard, according to the what you get in the record, he's received $1 million this year. What was his name? The guy who popped out this rotten...
The senator?
The senator.
Well, there's many of them getting millions from the insurance industry, but you're probably speaking about Bacchus, I'm assuming.
Bacchus. We got a couple of calls. You want to take a call?
Sure.
It's probably Bacchus already. Good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting.
I may sound like him, but I'm not.
What's up?
I do have a question for your guest.
Sure.
Well, it's a question and an observation. I have observed there are a lot of doctors who are in favor of healthcare reform in a big way. And a lot of people are surprised at that because they feel like we've been fed the story that the doctors don't want it, because this will take away from their profit, so to speak, because if the government steps in, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, I also happen to know that there are a lot of doctors that give out free health care. They don't make a big deal about it, and they don't advertise it. Of course, they'd probably be overwhelmed if they did. But if they have a patient and then something happens to the patient, they will often continue treating their patients without the lucrative or fairly lucrative money they would get from the insurance companies and so forth due to just a humanitarian thing. And is, to your knowledge, is this pretty widespread?
If you look at as far as whether physicians want health care reform, it's overwhelmingly physicians want health care reform. In New York State, people don't know this, but the New York State Medical Society called for single-payer universal health care. That passed the New York State chapter. Actually, the AMA chapter of the New York State Medical Society. It also passed the American College of Physicians, which is the second largest physicians group in the United States, called for universal health care, and single payer was a funding mechanism that they were supportive of. So if you look at any of the surveys, primary care physicians overwhelmingly call for universal health care, and they think that it should be government funded. Do they want total government control? No. But Medicare does work. It's not perfect, but that is a mechanism where we could provide universal health care for everybody in this country. We could expand Medicare. It needs to be improved. The out-of-pocket co-pays, deductibles are too much. I think they need to be lowered, but it'd simplify the system. Even the president, the CEO of the Cleveland Clinic, if you read the Newsweek article, he mentions Medicare, how Medicare is actually more efficient. The overhead is less than the private health insurance industry. But these are huge lobbies out there that are...
Oh, absolutely. And they have trillions of dollars to spend. And apparently they're spending a lot of it. And they're quite happy with what's happened so far in what is being passed. They're very happy about it. So if they're happy about it, something's telling me
we're being screwed, right?
I should not be quite as happy.
Well, you know, we need universal health care. We need to provide basic health care to everybody in this country. You know, I'd love to see Medicare expanded to the entire population, but the reality, it's probably not going to happen, though it could happen. But if we're going to leave all the private health insurance industries in there, which other nations, there are other countries in the world that do it similarly, it's just going to cost more. It's going to be another $100 to $200 billion in spending. I'd rather that money go back.
And then what will happen is it'll be more money, and then it'll be blamed on the fact that we have partial. It will not be the fault of the insurance companies or anybody else. It'll be the fault that we have partial health care. Trust me, I can see the handwriting on the wall on
yeah,
this
well, there's a lot of finger pointing. As far as the other thing that you asked about, yeah, the physicians, yeah, I hope they continue to take care of patients, whether they can afford it or not. And frequently what's happened is the cost. That's one reason why the costs are higher for the insured, is to cover the costs of the people who aren't insured or who can't afford to pay for it. Hospitals do it. Physicians do it. You know, probably the entire health industry does it. And patients are being sent to collections by physicians and hospitals if you don't have the insurance. In bankruptcy, we already heard, you know, so, and that is harmful to patients being sent to collections.
Of course, they're in bad health to start with. It's not going to help to be worried about, well, am I going to be ejected from my home, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct, and you know, so, and then they're less likely to come back or to seek treatment because they are under this, you know, bad debt or whatever you want to call it, and so again, they're less likely to go to the emergency room or less likely to see a doctor for basic health care, and then until it's critical, and then sometimes they die at home, but more likely what happens is they crash back into the system, costs even more. The other thing that people don't realize, and they say, well, Medicare, look how expensive it is, and it's exploding and all that.